Hi, this is Alan Gleeson for Crossfadr. In this video, I'm going to have a look at iZotope's Nectar, a single plugin that contains a set of tools to help you maximize the impact of your vocals. Although it's designed to use on vocals, it's so powerful and intuitive, its uses go way beyond just vocals. It functions as a channel strip with all the classic tools you need to shape the timbre and dynamics of your source material, but then adds a few tasty extra features for adding dimension and saturation to your mix. And it's available in AAX, AU and VST formats. To get started and to get the device working, I'm going to be using the vocal assistant function. Those familiar with iZotope's Neutron and Ozone will be familiar with what this type of feature does. It attempts to optimize the device, creating a custom preset based on an analysis of the source material feeding into the device. The track that I'm going to be working on is called Naturally by Alan Stone, and I got this multi-track from the Telefunken website, where you can download multi-tracks to practice your mixing skills, and there's a great variety of genres to work on there. So I have the Nectar tool on my vocal track. I'm going to click on Vocal Assistant here. And we've got two options here. We're going to look at the assist function to begin with. And what it's going to do is listen to the source material that's playing through it and attempt to optimize the device based on that. So start playing the material. And I click on Assist. Next. Now we can select the type of vibe and the intensity of the material. So this is a soulful kind of track, so I'm going to select Vintage. And let's see what happens when we do a moderate. It's a pretty light mix, but I'm going to try with moderate and just see what that does. It's going to do various processes here, analysing the level and attempt to set the various tools within the device based on that.
Even from a mirror, but that her dukes are not the daisies, and her shape and size.
Adjust my output there.
Don't need advice, no. She paints up that face to make sure those blemishes.
So it gives you a list there of all the different things that it's done, and I'm going to accept that. So within the device, you've got a number of tools to work with. There's classic things like EQs, de-essers, gates, compressors and reverb, and then there's additional tools like pitch, which is a pitch correction tool, something similar to auto-tune. And we can add additional tools such as delay, dimension and saturation. Let's have a look at what it's actually done here. This type of track I don't actually need the correction turned on. It isn't actually turned on. So I've got typical controls in there for setting the key and the scale and how quickly it responds. As we move along, we've got a gate. It's not being used at the minute. As with all the iZotope devices, really great user interface. Allows you to quickly analyze the material and get feedback from it. So I don't really need a gate there. Usually when you're using the track assistant, what the first EQ will do will attempt to correct any issues with the signal, where any other further EQs that it's set up will be more for sweetening the sound. So we'll look at this first EQ. According to the track analysis, it's picked out a couple of notches here and there that it wants to reduce. So if I click on any of these, we can see the settings for the EQ. Now what's really great about this EQ is it's got a couple of additional features here if you expand our sort of display panel here. At the minute we've got a static EQ here, the frequency, the gain and the Q set. You have various different shapes that you can set up. But over on this side here, you can set the EQ to be dynamic. So when I actually click on gain, I've got a threshold here. So if I was to adjust the gain, you can now see that the EQ is responding based on the dynamic of the input. That's really great for adding transparent tonal adjustments to the signal. So I can turn that off with this. Other great one here is this follow. So when this turns on, when you set the range of where you want to EQ, maybe a particular harmonic, when the performer is changing their pitch, it will actually track that particular frequency. That's a really awesome feature, and saves having to use a lot of automation or other types of processors to control those frequencies. As we move along, we've got a de-esser. Again, we can set the frequency and we can set the threshold. The next EQ along here is attempting to do a bit of sweetening, kind of roll off some of the high end and roll off some of the maybe lower muddiness in the signal. Again, great display on the compressor here. Maybe for me it's maybe compressing a bit too much. I want something a bit more transparent, so I'll just bring up the threshold there. And you've got different responses or different types of compressors that you can actually use: digital, vintage, optical and solid state. So lots of different flavors to choose from there when you're processing the material, and depending on which one you choose, there some of the controls might be inactive. Switch over to vintage. Got a clear display here about the gain reduction that's been applied. And then finally we've got some reverb, and there's an EQ curve been applied to tonally shape the reverb. Now we notice the mix of the particular process, and we can do that with any of these controls. You can get parallel processing on EQs, compressors, de-essers and so on. In our master section here we've got ALM activated, which stands for auto level mode. So we can set a particular level here, and it will attempt to adjust the gain prior to any of the processing to level out the signal. So typically you might do this with automation or ride your volume fader to keep the vocal present throughout the performance, but this function will actually do it for you. It's got a limiter at the end there. Just want to control some of the peaks. So we can add some additional controls or modules to the device. Dimension allows us to dial in some chorus, flange or phaser. But again, I can just dial back on the mix there. So it's just gently processing the signal. And then maybe you might want to add a bit of saturation, a bit of tape saturation, vintage vibe. So when we start to turn this up, you can see various frequency ranges the color is altering there. So it's telling you actually what harmonics it's actually saturating. Often with saturation plugins, the high frequencies can get overemphasized. So you've got a post-processing filter here. There's a shelving EQ. She paints up that face to make sure those blemishes hide. Beautiful lady. So let's move on to a different, move into the chorus. Cigarettes, around the neck. So we'll just bypass the plugin to see what it's done. Too much saturation there. And it's bringing up the level quite a bit, but it's really helping it cut through more in the mix, sound clearer, more clarity, more professional. Just match the gain here so you can hear. So it's adding more clarity to the sound. And some of these compression settings that I'm using and the saturation are helping it give a bit more of a vintage vibe. So yeah, pretty awesome. If you go back into the vocal assistant, there's also an unmask function. And what this function does is that, if I click next here, I can select a source here. And what this does is that any track that has iZotope's Relay plugin or Neutron 2 or another Nectar, you can use this function to apply an EQ curve to that channel where you feel it might be masking the vocal's intelligibility in the mix. So when I select a source, I've got various iZotope, either Relay or Neutron or Nectar devices on other channels. So I can maybe select, say, my keys group. It's quite a full kind of like Rhodesy kind of sound. So I click on next. It's waiting for me to play the audio. So it's listening to the keys, comparing it with the vocals, and then accept. If I go over to where my keys are, you see there it's unmasking vocals on Nectar 3. So it allows you to activate and deactivate that to hear the changes that you actually made. Can be subtle, there's maybe not a lot of masking going on there, but in any situation where masking is a problem, this is a real time saver. So with Nectar you also get a number of other tools to help you refine the vocals in your mix. You get the RX7 breath control device, and you also get Melodyne 4, which is an amazing tool when you want to go deep into pitch correction and pitch modification. So it really is a bit of a dream device, all the various tools that you would ever need when you're processing your vocal, or other material for that matter. You of course don't have to use Vocal Assistant. You can work your way through the device, adding devices, changing the order, changing the mix balance, changing the settings to suit your needs, and all the time getting great feedback from the device itself on the way that it's actually processing your material. So head over to iZotope for more information. This has been Alan Gleeson for Crossfadr. Please like and subscribe to videos, and remember to turn on that notification bell to keep updated on our newest videos.